Yeah, I hope so. That's right. We'll see. All right, here we go. It is that time. I love it, man. I look forward to this thing so much. Man, I love that we get to spend this time together. Help a Teacher Facebook Live every Monday night, 7 p.m. Central. And hey, before we get this thing started, let's have some announcements, boys and girls. Here we go. And here's the first one. I have a Teaching a Rock Star professional development event coming up, open to the public. It is in Corpus Christi, Texas. It's coming up on Wednesday, February 12th, and it is going to be an amazing day. I can't wait for here's the thing, anytime that we can fill a room with some of the most passionate, awesome, amazing, compassionate educators, just like magical moments happen. And it's going to be an awesome day. And you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. Let me see if I can do that. I am going to put the link in the comments section for those people that want some more information. And let me copy and paste that in there now. There we go. What's up, Tracy? Good to see you, man. Laura. All right, here we go. And also, before we get started, really, really important as well is just a huge shout out of appreciation. So thankful for the Craig Newmark Philanthropies. They, I love how much people love educators. And again, tonight, we're going to give away 3 $100 gift cards to teachers. So the way you qualify for this is all you have to do is comment, put a comment in there, say hi, participate in the conversation. And the way it works, we're going to put all those names into a randomizer. And then at some point towards the end of our time together tonight, we're going to pick 3 names. And you guys can contact us. You'll get your $100 gift card. It might be, you have your choice of Target or Amazon. And again, all made possible by the Craig Newmark Philanthropies, who love and support educators. All right. So last announcement is a huge shout out to, so many people that are behind the scenes here at Help a Teacher making all this magic happen. And one, Christine Rush, man, thank you so much for helping and all this stuff, all the work that you do, putting all this together. So many people. And in particular, I wanted to mention her. She was able to put this whole show together and make it possible. And Christine, just the volume of work that she puts into this each week is awesome. So thank you to you. All right. So tonight on the show, we have CJ Reynolds, and you guys know him from Real Rap with Reynolds. His YouTube channel is blowing up over there, and CJ teaches high school literature and, get this, man, the history of hip hop. What? In West Philadelphia. Now, listen, I'm from New Jersey, right across the river, and let me think. I can tell you some Philadelphia specifically. I know DJ Jazzy Jeff, the roots of Philly. All right, he's also the author of Teacher Class Off, the Real Rap Guide to Teaching. Between Teacher Class Off and Teaching a Rock Star, man, there's no telling what's going to go down tonight. And listen, his book is coming out in April. His whole vibe is about giving teachers and everyone an authentic glimpse into what it looks like to be a high school teacher in the inner city and what really goes on in those classrooms. And in addition to that, to help teachers, both new and veteran teachers, to be the teacher that they have always wanted to be. All right, man, fired up to have him on the show. CJ Reynolds, let's chat about it, brother. How is it, man? How's everything?
Countdown on the bot. There we are. What's up? How are you?
I'm great, man. So now, did you grow up in Philly?
No, I grew up in Jersey, but my family's all from Philly. So like I used to go over there and it was nice. My block, there were 2 kids, and in Philly you could have like a full football team with the kids up on the block. So I loved it. So, but that's where I ended up working though, in West Philly.
What town in New Jersey did you grow up?
Haddon Heights, which is in Camden County. It's like not far from, I still live in Jersey. And I just drive over the bridge every day to go to Philly. So it's New Jersey is where I hail from.
I grew up there, man. I left there in the 7th grade and I lived in little towns, a little township, Voorhees.
Yeah, I know Voorhees.
Yeah, South, and then in West Berlin for a little bit.
Yep. So I grew up going to vocational school, which was at the time the worst school in South Jersey, in Berlin. And then I used to work at Echelon Mall, man, which is in Voorhees, and that has great skateboarding around there. So all my friends
Yes.
grew up in Cherry Hill. We used to all skate around there and stuff.
Right, man, the Echelon Mall. So here's don't tell my mother this, but here's what she would do. She would drop me off at the Echelon Mall. They had a YMCA over there, and my buddies and I would go to the Echelon. Not only that, we would take the high speed line, the train over to Philly and try to make it back in time for her to pick us up. She never knew a thing.
No one will know. No.
No. I'm keeping that one a secret, clearly. Yeah. Hey, man, how did you get into this whole teaching thing? Well, was that something that you wanted to do from the very beginning?
Nope. I hated high school, man. I went to high school because my friends were there, and I never wanted to be in education at all. I thought I was going to be a carpenter. I was a drummer for a long time, and so I've been playing drums since I was in fourth grade. And then those hours were not optimal, and that world is just kind of gets nuts after a while. And so then I thought I was going to be a priest, and so I spent time in a monastery. And then my wife who's sitting over there, did not like that idea, so I nixed that. And then I thought I was going to be a clown, but not like a Barnum and Bailey clown. I thought I was going to like travel the world and go to like third world countries. And so my wife and I spent a little time in Zambia, in South Africa, and South Central Africa, and at an AIDS clinic. And I just like clowned around with kids all day. And then teaching became like the perfect combination of all of those things, right? It's like being a performer, it's being a jackass and getting paid for it, it's deeply caring for people, and the carpentry stuff. I mean, I just liked building stuff for my class. So it was like this perfect storm of all the things I ever wanted to be kind of worked into that job.
Yeah. Man, we have a lot in common, brother. I, just did the South Jersey thing. And then I also was a drummer for that was my thing forever, all the way since, in New Jersey, we started a beginner band in fourth and fifth grade, take private lessons, and all through junior high, then high school, and went to college for music and did the whole band director thing, drummer thing. And so when was it when you were clowning around, did you decided, man, maybe I could find like a profession where I could still work with kids and do my thing?
Yeah. So somebody was like, why don't you be a teacher? Like, so I've always been like, when I was younger, I had this like effect on kids that I thought was weird when I was younger, right? So like whenever I go somewhere, this still happens to me now. I could be at the food store and some little kid will tell me, I really like dinosaurs, or like, I hate when my mom makes me eat peas. And I can be all by myself or with my wife could tell you this happens all the time, where no matter where I am, little kids just sort of gravitate towards me. And when you're younger, that's weird. Like when you're 22 and you're just taking a walk in the park, some kid starts telling you about his dad and you're like, this seems weird. And then it wasn't until later that I still don't know what that is, but I just chalk it up to a gift. And that the combination of all those things I wanted to be matched with this sort of like general connection with young people was what really kind of, when someone said, why don't you be a teacher? I thought, yeah, why not? That sounds perfect. And so the more I got into it, the more I thought this is exactly what I want to do. So that's how it kind of went down.
You know what it is? I always wonder, like, is that like a DNA thing? Just the fact you have that kind of vibe where kids are drawn to it and feel safe and trustworthy. Like, I think it might be a little bit of nature, but in your case, and maybe in my case, and people like us, I think it's a lot of learned and nurtured into us, because like I was like you, brother. I wasn't successful. Like I hated school. I wasn't academically inclined. I was just tolerating it. And because you had to go, so I went. And I think because I wasn't successful and it was, I didn't dig it. I didn't like anything about it. And much like you, like that's when I when I got to the classroom, I got it. Like I understood those kids because I was that kid. I think for some teachers who are traditionally successful and they're inclined towards academics and that's kind of who they are, and they show up in the classroom and they got 2 kids out of 38 that are like them. Yeah. It's hard to build a relationship.
Yeah, for sure. I think some of it is like, I grew up, and still now, I love when things sucked in my life and then I have the choice to make them not suck as an adult. So my dad growing up was not a good dad. Like, so I lost my dad when I was 4, and then I had a stepdad that just wasn't a good guy. And so now as a father, I think I'm great. Like I won't say I'm great, but like I do all the weird stuff that like my parents always said no to. So like eating candy in bed at night, heck yeah, man, let's make a fort and like hide under your pillows and we're gonna make, we're gonna eat candy. Oh, you want a fairy garden in the backyard or secret passageways in the house? Done. Like we make secret passageways. And so all that kind of stuff I get to do. And so I think teaching was part of that also, where it was like school sucked. I hated it every day. There is not one teacher that would remember me if I walked up to them anywhere at any time, because I was that kid that flew under the radar.
Yeah.
Now what I do is I have the opportunity to go in and find kids that fly under the radar, to make kids that feel invisible visible, and to let kids know that they are valuable no matter who they are. It's not just the kids that are the biggest issue in class because of behavior, and not just the kids that are the smartest that everyone loves. It's like, who are we not paying attention to? And then I just make this kind of like group. We call it, it's like my room looks like the island of misfit toys all the time from that Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer movie. It's just like, the Charlie in the box and the water pistol that shoots jelly. Those are all my homies that I hang out with every day. So I think that's kind of where that comes from.
You know what it is for me? Like I always think it like an inverted bell curve, where in terms of getting attention, where you have that far right end of the spectrum where those kids are super academic and super successful and they're killing it. And of course you get a lot of recognition for that. Then you get the opposite end of the spectrum, the other side of the bell curve, where kids, there's behavior issues and disrespectful and disruptive. So they're too getting a lot of attention. The one that freaks me out and it scares me is that bottom of the curve where they're floating under the radar. They're trying to remain anonymous. The kid with his head down, because when he learns to put his head down and he doesn't make a noise and doesn't do anything, no one's calling on him, no one's going to talk to him, and he sits by the back door, wears the hoodie and pulls it down low so no one's. Those are the kids that really, really worry me.
Yeah, and I think mixed into that are the kids that kind of sit there politely and they do not draw attention, and you think they're getting it because they're good at going like this or looking like they're working. But then at the end of the year, you're like, wait, how'd this dude fail? Like I had zero idea that you were struggling. And so and I think that comes down to a lot of teachers just being scared to address issues and really talk to students. So the kid that tells you to go screw yourself and is going to sit in the back and is going to cause a problem, you're like, you know what? Forget you then. And that's the dude I think that needs it just as badly. You just have to change up your approach because you can reach all those students. But it just takes some courage to do it.
That's what I say. In my events, I say it's okay to start out with the easy ones. That's okay. They have a cute outfit on. They smell good. Like that. They start there for sure.
Yep.
If you have to. But I think where the glory lies in teaching is finding that kid who's flying under the radar. No one suspects it. No one knows it. Identifying that kid and then being the one, like making a commitment. That's my guy, man. I'm changing this kid's life. He's the one posted up next to the vending machine, hanging out with his homies, not talking to anybody. That's the one I want. The one that's in line to see the principal again, possibly. That's my guy.
Yep.
Because I feel like, I think for whatever reason, like I feel comfortable enough to be self-aware. Like I know that's where my strength lies, is connecting with, like, I get it, man. I understand that kid.
Yeah. Yeah. I was always good, which is the irony, but I was the guy in class that didn't do the bad thing, but I came up with the really great ideas of like, what you should do is do this thing, right? So that was my job. Right. And I just kind of sat back and watched my work play out. But I just think for where I always wanted to teach like in the inner city. That was always where my heart was. And we had talked a little bit about this before the show. Like, I don't diss anyone that chooses not to do that. This is where I feel like my calling is. That being said, why would I be there if I'm not going to help the kids that really need it? Because like I said, I think it just takes getting to know kids. And then once you have that in, those guys are, and so I teach all boys, so I say guys all the time. Those are your ride or die guys forever. Those are the guys that are going to do anything for you because you stuck it out, because you were the person, like you said, you were the one that stayed true and tried to surround that kid with love every single day that he came into your classroom.
I think that's what it is. And, what I think it's important to talk about, what we shared and we agreed on prior to, turn on the live button. And that is, at every level, whether it's really challenging socioeconomic situations or, like high economic subdivisions out here outside the city where these kids live, man, they're all equally needy. Like they all deserve an amazing person in their life. And it's even okay, I think, if a teacher shows up on your campus and they realize it's not for them, hey man, like that's okay. That like go find your kids. That's cool. And if it is for you, then let's go all in and make a difference in the lives of these kids.
Yeah, I agree. So I think for me, I remember hearing that your zip code is the number one determining factor on whether or not you were going to be successful in life, more than your IQ, more than whether your mom loved you, more than anything. And so that's kind of what drew me to the neighborhood. So I used to teach in Camden, New Jersey, and then now I teach in West Philadelphia. And that's what took me there. But yeah, I see folks all the time that are just, it's not their jam. It's not the space for them. And they get beat up about that because it's the work they want to do, but it's like, it is hard work and it does wear you down. I mean, we've lost 5 boys in the last 5 years to gun violence, and that wears on you. And I don't think that I'm any better. I think I'm older than most of the people that I teach with. So you have teachers that come in at 22 years old and they haven't had much hardship in their life. And then something like that happens and you're not kind of built for that yet. And I'm not saying you can't ever really kind of be built for it. I mean, every time it happens, it kind of knocks me down. It's someone that had a life, someone that I cared for, somebody that left, parents and a community brokenhearted behind. And so there's no really building up to that. But, when your kids are even kind of going through that their whole lives and then they're hardened and then you show up and you want to teach really bad, but that kid's like, you're just like everybody else and you're going to leave also. So why am I giving you my time or energy? Because you're just going to split. So I'm going to test you. And if you pass the test, then I'll trust you. But some people can't take that and it wears them down quicker. But like you said, I think there's kids out there whose dads just work all the time anyway, and they're millionaires and they never see their pop either. And so it's like, if your dad's locked up or whether he just doesn't care about you or cares about work more than you, what's the difference?
Yeah. What's the difference, man? Yeah. I think, those kids, I think that's why I just had a knack for understanding it and get it. I understand the psychology of the test and I understand the importance of loving that kid relentlessly. And I always say, man, like that for me, and I don't want to insult anybody. It's just for me. I'm not saying this is for anybody, just for me. For me, teaching begins at the point where everybody else gave up on that kid. Because I know when I'm there, because I can feel it. I'm so mad. I'm out of my mind. I'm crazy. I can see, I feel my emotions coming up and my heart's beating. But now, because I've been doing it for so long, that right there, triggers in my mind. This is the point here. I'm there. This is where everybody gives up. Yeah. I'm right here. And up until then, I call it talking. Right now we're teaching. This is the moment where it matters, because I know this is when everybody walks out and this is where it starts, man. I love this kid relentlessly right now. And that is when you can feel the relationship shift and the school year shifts and the academic shift. Everything starts to change from that moment.
Yeah. So I think that's a really good point, because up until then, their heads are down. They're not doing anything. And I think when new teachers come in, I mean, the advice I give kids all the time when they start going in the classroom is, one, you cannot count your success by what happened that year. You have zero idea sometimes what you say to someone and how that carries with them. And so I like teaching 9th grade, because our school goes from 9 to 12 and I get to see those kids for the next 3, sometimes 4 years after that. And that's huge, because then that gives me if I look at the 10 months we're in school, that doesn't mean anything sometimes. We're just getting started. But next year when I'm not your teacher, but now I'm just your mentor, or you're coming back to me for help, or most of the staff left, and so you're one of the only ones left, that's a big thing. And I think also make yourself part of a community. Don't be the only one in your school then, but find your, being the best teacher at your school is and being alone is like going to a party by yourself. And that only works for Billy Idol. Everybody else, it's you want to be with other people at school. And so what kind of community can you surround yourself with that you're getting excited about? Because I think, I forget who said it, but happiness is only real when shared is a quote I remember reading when I was younger. And so you want to be able to share those wins and losses with people. So surround yourself with good people, and it helps.
Yeah. Here's what's interesting about our profession is, we always say that, and we always talk about with kids, especially how you become the product of the 5 or 6 people that you surround yourself with. And it's true with teachers, the teachers you hang out with, that's who you're becoming. But here's the challenge. When we surround ourselves with these amazing teachers and we pull them in, the problem is those people that aren't in our circle, and we don't want them because we don't vibe with them and doesn't feel. But the problem is that they're still standing before kids. That's the problem. So what I always tell people is find those people, pull them into your circle, and then collectively go and make a difference in the lives of those other people. It's like find your tribe and then collectively go and make a difference in the ones that are struggling.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I said, it just makes it more fun and it's more practical. I can't be the one for every kid. Some kids just don't want my help. Some kids I just can't figure out the angle to get through to you. But my friends might I might go to my friend who's a math teacher and for some reason they get along with that kid. And so if I'm having an issue with them in class, that's who I go to. And then we sit down as a group, like me and other teachers and the student. And then we have the conversation about how we're going to help you to be successful. Because sometimes kids don't want to listen. They think I'm full crap, or they think that I don't really care that much, or they don't, whatever it is, right? It's just like we're butting heads for whatever reason. So I go to someone that they're not butting heads with, and that person vouches for me, and then that I get to win just by knowing the right person, and it works.
Man, that school family just so important when you get the right people in the family. It's just like parenting, I mean, like two parents on the same page, there's that synergistic effect that collectively they're so much more powerful than in the individual parts.
Yes.
Yeah. And when you started teaching, did you know right away, like, oh my God, I found it. This is it?
No, I remember the first day I was scared out of my mind. I remember I set up my classroom. I felt like it was so rad looking. And then the bell rings. I hear the kids walking down the hallway. And I thought, oh no, what did I do?
What have I done in my life?
No one's going to listen to me. I'm like skinnier than a dead model. I'm like, scared out of my mind. I have zero idea what my students like or what they're into. And I know what I like. And I think that that's going to be what I'm going to share. And it wasn't until I realized that teaching through a lens that I cared about did not win anybody, right? So if I went in and played my music, if I did things I thought were cool, it didn't win. Once I dared to walk into the world of my students and ask them what they thought was interesting, that's when everything shifted. And that was about halfway through my first year, where relationship-wise, I could get down with kids, but content-wise, I was losing all over the place. And that's when I started to figure out what teaching was all about and how to keep it relevant. And that actually made kids want to show up to class because you were giving them a voice and a choice in the classroom. So that's when the shift happened.
Was it something you just kind of figured out on your own, or was it by seeing other effective teachers?
Yeah. But even the effective teachers that I saw were so there was a guy that he's still at the school that I taught at. And so I taught at this school in Camden, and there was a guy, I was 27 when I started teaching. He was probably in his mid 40s, African-American man from the same neighborhood as the kids. I mean, the coolest dude, right? He could go into a gymnasium of kids that were going insane, grab the mic and be like, I need everyone to sit down. And then everyone would just be they would just sit down. He was like the Fonz, right? And it was awesome. And I wanted to emulate that on some level, but I wasn't sure how. And then I quickly realized that I'm never going to do that. I'm not a 40-year-old African-American man from the same neighborhood. I cannot carry the vibe that this man carries because it's something special to him. And so what I had to figure out was, well, what makes me different than everyone else, and how can I lean into that? And once I start leaning into things like my creativity, my humor, I could not fight in high school, even though I went to I think I went to the worst high school. I'm going to go ahead and say I went to the worst high school in South Jersey. I could not fight, and I got beat up every day my 9th grade year, but I realized that my sarcasm could get me out of things. So I started learning how to make fun of kids, and that same skill set helped me when I was teaching kids, because kids are always kind of making fun of one another. And if I could figure out a way to playfully do that won in the classroom every day. Yeah.
It's amazing. I think that is the challenge of the first year. Well, first year, but for me, it's a first three to 5 year process of becoming a comfortable teacher. I'm not saying we're good. I'm not saying I was effective or great yet, but I was starting to figure things out. And that is seeing amazing teachers that are completely different than you.
Yes.
And that's the challenge, because sometimes you'll see that really stern teacher where they have that scowl and they raise the eyebrow and point at people. And you think, okay, well, that's how you do it because they're killing it, man. I'm going to try that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work because that's not me. And the sense, the kids that have that sense where they don't know what's wrong with you, but if you're not truly 100% authentically you, there's something they'll sniff that out fast.
Oh, absolutely.
And the more I tried to be an impersonator of all these other great teachers in their way, it was so miserable and so ineffective until I figured out how just to be 100% me in every way, every day.
Yeah. And look, I mean, I think part of the problem with that is when you're in college, they teach you a way to be a good teacher, right? Or you watch all the movies, and all those teachers have like common threads that are something about them that makes them special. And you just can't do that. Or you look at some of these organizations that try and get teachers to go teach like in the inner city, and it's like, this is how you do it. And this is how, like, there are no silver bullets in education, right? There's no one way to do anything. Just like when schools bring in curriculum and they're like, okay, if we implement these different things, your students will all have great grades by the end of the year. And it's like, bro, that is the dumbest thing I ever heard in my life. That's like, why don't we just have one kind of music or one kind of food in the world also? Because that doesn't work either.
Yeah.
It's about figuring out who you are and then leaning into that. And then I think that's when you start really being effective in the classroom, because then you're comfortable with yourself. You're not trying to be something. This isn't like a play, you're trying to be real with kids if you want them to be real with you anyway.
You know what it was for me? This isn't the right word at all, but it felt, I want to say effortless, but I don't mean that. Is when I finally figured out it just seemed to require so much less effort, because I spent, 5 years trying to be some other teacher, trying to do it that way, trying to be great in that way. But when I just finally discovered just how to be me in my way, in my class, I was able to teach with ease.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that just takes time, but a lot of new teachers, I was like this too, man. I wanted to be great, like from the jump. And you forget that when I started playing drums, I sucked. Like I just couldn't do anything. Like it was a train. I remember my neighbor across the street was like, "Are you gonna keep this up? Because this is works. Are you even trying over there?" And, but if you weren't good at playing drums in the first week or the first year, you wouldn't beat yourself up. You just keep doing it, and you keep noting the ink. Like, I can keep time. I can do a fill. I can, the things that you can do are a win. But in teaching, for some reason, it is the only profession I can think of that we think we should be instantly good from the first day. And then we're not good at tasting our own blood. So when the job punches you in the face and you realize that you're not there yet, it's like being able to spit that out and like keep going. And I think that that's at any school. I don't care where you teach. I think you're going to run into that on some level.
Well, you know what it is, man. I think like culturally, this job is set up. And I've always said, man, this is the only profession on the planet that I can think of where on day number one, like the first minute of your first day, you have the same expectations put upon you as a 35-year veteran down the hall. Like you're getting the same number of kids, the same number of challenges. See if it's teaching the same content, the same everything. And you have no skills. I mean, we went to college, but I don't know anything because I never taught, And so those expectations really set us up. I know for me, like it really set myself up for a ton of failure and a ton of pain.
Yeah, for sure. Because learning to teach in college is like learning how to swim in a classroom, right? It's like you're like watching movies about water and learning about the molecular structure of water. And this is what, if someone drowns, this is what you would do theoretically if you had to like do CPR. And then the first day of teaching is like they kicked your ass off the high dive and you're just like, what? Wait a minute. I forget what to do now. Like, what's classroom management? How do I seat the kids? How do I hand out papers? What do I do if someone has to go to the bathroom 97 times? It's like, it's all this rush of reality that comes at you. And it's like everything was practice up until then. But the great part is no one's going to catch on fire. You can just like, it's okay. Calm down. And then it's, that's part of the reason I do what I do. And I think, like for those of us, like when you're going and speaking somewhere, or when you're doing live feeds like this, it's about creating alternative spaces for teachers to connect with one another and think like, okay, number one, I'm not the only one that feels like this. And number two, there's simple ways I can lean into who I am and really win at this game. So, yeah.
Yeah, man. And I think the other thing, and I have a theory, but here's my theory. I could be way off, but my theory is, the people that are drawn to this profession are the most caring and compassionate. They want to make a difference, and it's in their heart. They so want to be good, and they so want to make a difference in the lives of kids. So you have that kind of personality. Now you put them in the classroom, and oftentimes, brother, this is the first time they've ever failed. They feel bad at something, because typically those people that come to the classroom have been pretty good at stuff athletically, musically. They have some success. They have evidence of success built up, the stockpile it somewhere in their life, and they get to the classroom. And it is an overwhelming failure for a lot of people because they feel out of control. They don't know what's going on. They don't understand why nothing's working that they told was going to work in theory, because things that work in theory doesn't mean it's going to work in your classroom.
Yeah.
And so they're afraid and they feel bad. And here's what happens. Instead of going to look for help, they want to hide. And that's when we see teachers cut out that construction paper and put it, tape it over the skinny chicken wire window on the door so no one knows the chaos that's going in. But we all know. And so, man, I really think it's up to us as veteran teachers to go and help, and not to show up in a classroom to ask, hey, man, how can I help? Because you know what they're going to say? I'm fine. Everything's fine. Nothing to see here. It's all good here. And just go and help. Don't ask what do you need? Just give it. You can see what they need and just do it.
Yep. Yeah. I think, and because that all those first year teachers, and I know this I'm just thinking back to me, you just stay in your room. You don't want you don't want to go sit in someone else's classroom. And that's the worst thing that you could do. I think that what every new teacher should be doing is sitting in on other classes and seeing what that looks like, and then steal stuff. Like just take things. Like, don't recreate your new lesson plan or sit there. You don't get any extra credit for that. See what works, see what feels like you could do, and then take all the ideas that you want. And that's the beauty behind even doing the YouTube channel. I mean, we're at almost 400 videos on there now over the last few years, and I share everything, and it's all free. Like, just take it. I don't want your money for it, because I remember what it was like to be in that situation. And I think when you have those new teachers in your school, go buy them a beer or a cup of coffee or something like that, and build those relationships, because then they're more apt to say, hey, look, I've been really struggling this year and I'm not sure what to do. And you can use the stuff that you have. I think one of the funny things I've seen in school is everybody wants to be the greatest teacher, but they don't think that we could all be great and that we'd all benefit from that. No circus is good if there's only one good act, right? You have to have multiple different types of acts. So I'm sure the trapeze people don't get pissed off at the bear wrangling people. It's no, we want the whole show to be awesome. If you're in a band, you want the whole band to be awesome. You don't want the bass player to kind of suck, because it messes the whole thing up, man. So yeah, I think that you have to help one another be the best that you can, and then realize that the kids are going to grow from that instead of just being the only one that's doing it.
Yeah, man. You know what? The challenge, I think one of the big challenges we have is, we both know that we lose 50% of teachers in the first 5 years. 50% aren't going to make it to the end of the 5 years. And I get it. In part, there's a percentage of that I'm okay with, because they just didn't know what this thing really was about, and they should have never been a teachers, and that's okay. But we really do lose some good, high quality professional educators. And I really think if we could look at a new teacher rather than a first year teacher, look at it like a doctor. Let's give the support for this 3-4 years. And not with a mentor teacher just because they're the oldest person in the school, hooking them up with them, but give somebody, give them a team, a family to be a part of, and hook them up. A first year teacher comes in, and give them somebody who's really good at classroom leadership, and hook them up with that person, and then a content person, and then someone to check on them emotionally and socially and see how they're doing and keeping up. It's really, really hard. And I think if it would be so much more effective if we took more time and more people to be on that team to build that teacher up and give them the foundation they need to be successful in those first 5 years.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the other thing that kind of goes wrong is when we are piling responsibilities upon first year teachers when they're already working all weekend. They're already staying up all night getting ready for tomorrow, because they don't have that. I can drive to school. When people, the video I always get asked for is, how do I lesson plan? And I want to say, this is how I lesson plan. I just think of stuff. I just drive to work, and I'm like, what do I do today? I know the lesson well enough. I know what's coming up next. I know what we have to read. I know what it's going to look like. But how can I change this for this year's kids? Because Last year, it was all of my vocab was taught through the lens of Marvel, right? And so, but this year, Marvel's not as hot because Endgame came out and it's shifted. So like, what am I going to focus on this year? And that's going to be where all of my vocab comes from this year. So it's like just thinking about what your students are interested in and then using that in the classroom is huge. But, first year teachers don't even have the time to do that because they are preparing their portfolio for the end of the year and they're thinking about all their observations and there's the lesson plans that all need to be done and the unit plans that need to be done and the classroom management and managing write-ups and calling parents and doing grades. It's too much and they don't have time to just kind of figure it out and have like a little bit of fun with it. It's like all the fun was like sucked out of it immediately, and that sucks.
Man, it's that, I think it is, man. What it is, it's that quiet time where your brain needs to relax a little bit. And that's when it processes and figures out natural solutions rather than, forcing it and trying to grind it away. It's just, the brain doesn't, solutions don't happen like that. And, the other thing, man, like talking about it, like listening you talk about with your kids is, and trying to figure out like what this year is going to be and how we're going to deliver the message this year. Man, I was in Virginia a while back and I was attending a leadership conference for principals I was speaking at. And before I spoke, they had the brand new principals that were going to be there. They're just coming in this year. And, school year hasn't even started yet. And they all had to give up and give like a little TED talk of their theme this year and their mission. And they're all doing their thing. And finally, the high school guy gets up and he goes, well, my talk's going to be is going to be really short because I don't have a mission. I don't have a theme. I haven't even thought about that stuff because I haven't even met my teachers yet. So let me go meet these people and then I'm going to come back and I'll tell you what the theme and the mission is. And he went and sat down and went, man, I love that guy. Like, that's it. Like that, like, isn't that what we want for our classrooms? Like, I'm not sure how I'm going to do it yet. Have you met these kids? Let me meet these kids, get into the life, build a relationship. And then I can tell you how I'm going to do this thing.
Yeah. And I was just thinking so I think this happens in culture anyway, when you're young, but in hip hop culture. So I teach a class called The History of Hip Hop. And one of the funny things about that is you can never use what you used last year, or sometimes you can't use what you used in the beginning of the year later in the year, because the movement is slang changes so quickly, music changes so quickly. The song that was hot 5 minutes ago is trash now, and now we like this artist instead. And because that's moving so fast, you have to keep up with it. And to stay relevant with what students are caring about, thinking about, wondering about now. And there has to be room to be able to dive into some of that stuff. So yeah, you have to know who your kids are and like, what kind of hip hop do you guys like? There was a stretch of time like a couple of years ago when Straight Outta Compton came out in the movies and like all my kids were doing throwback hip hop, and now no one's doing. There's like a couple dudes whose dads turned them on the Tribe Called Quest that still listen to it, but like largely it's, what are you into now? And then we have to dissect some of that stuff. And so but I think that's all culture, right? Like if you think about, I used to rock a mullet in high school. And so like, it's that stuff changes so quickly. What was the stuff you wore, the stuff you listened to, the TV shows that are hot, what movies hot, like all that changes so quickly. You have to be able to shift with it to stay relevant.
Man, at what point did you decide to kick off the YouTube thing and really go all in on it?
So I think 4 years ago, my son, who has high functioning autism, so he gets super hyper focused on one thing, right? My man, all he talks about right now is Fortnite. Is the only thing he talks about. But at that point, it was just watching families on YouTube, right? And so he was like, can we start a YouTube channel? I said, 100%. Like I said, I wanted to be the dad that I always wanted instead of the dad that I had. And so he did it. But then like maybe 6 months in, he lost interest. And I was like, dude, I friggin' learned how to edit, how to shoot stuff. I'm making connections with people. We're trying things. Like I bought a new computer, like all of this stuff. And so I thought, well, I'm not going to not do it. But what could I do that would be, and we only did it for fun. Like I didn't do it to like make money or something. I thought, well, I know about teaching. What if I put out content that was stuff I wish I knew when I started, or that no one ever told me that I wish someone had shared with me? So it was like little things, like how I set up my classroom, how I set up my seating chart, how I deal with kids that are being a behavioral issue in class. And that just started growing and growing and growing over time. And I think even now, like, I'm the only old dude on YouTube. There's like there's one other guy that's old also, my buddy Darren, but like everyone else is like really young and cute, and the majority are female teachers, and so there's no one else kind of in the space that's doing kind of what I'm doing on YouTube. And so that's the blessing and the curse, right? That's like I win because there's other dudes that are like, I'm an old guy also, like how the hell do I do this? And then there's all the, I think 80% of my audience is female, so it's just trying to put real stuff out there. And then I don't know when it really hit, but it just like, because I've just had these kind of markers that have kind of hit. And then I really knew I had something when people were sending me videos that their school was showing in professional development meetings, and they're like, we just watched 5 of your videos today. Or when I got asked to go speak places, or then definitely when I got asked to write a book, that was like, oh, I guess people are watching, because you don't know. You're like sitting in your house all by yourself. You're sitting in your room all by yourself, putting stuff out. I have no idea who's watching this. And then you get a letter from South Korea or South Africa or Germany from someone that's like, this has meant everything to me. And that's like, it's one of those moments, I think.
You know what's powerful about it? Like, I love that, I have the podcast, I have the Teaching a Rockstar podcast, and I love seeing those dots on, because when you look at your stats on who's listening and all that, it puts the dots all over the globe. And like, who in Turkey is watching? Like, why are those people? It's so crazy. But here's what I love about it the most is what I've realized a long time ago. If you want to bring in some new ideas and new creativity, what you do is you have to give your stuff away. Like, the sooner and the faster and the more effectively you can give your best stuff away, it's like making room in your noggin for even better ideas. It is crazy how it works. I always tell people, man, like, if you're burned out and if you're stuck in the classroom, you know what you do? Go down the hall and help somebody and help them with whatever they're doing. And it's going to be an onslaught of great creative, like a brandy cane of ideas. It works every time.
Yeah, I literally don't have one lesson now that I did even in my first 5 years of teaching. Like, even my best stuff from my first 5 years, I don't do any of that anymore, because it just becomes not fun. It's like, I don't want to be the Rolling Stones. I don't want to play, Jumpin' Jack Flash 60 years later. Like, I want to come up with new stuff and be doing something new that's interesting to me as well. And like I said, your audience changes every single year, and so you have to keep doing new stuff. So you might as well give it all away, because it's like, I'm done with this. It's like, send it to the teacher thrift store, and like somebody else can take it and roll with it. And that could be new and exciting and fun for them. So I think that's absolutely the move.
Yeah, man. When you were in your school, I know it's a super challenging demographics for some people. You happen to love it. Do you guys have a lot of teacher turnover on your campus?
Yeah, I think last year something like 40 or 50% of the teachers left. And look, that we've had, I guess it's always tough. We've lost 5 boys in the last 5 years. So like to gun violence, I've had a bunch of other students like either locked up, or kids that, some indefinitely, some for a short while, students that have gotten shot and have lived. And so it's a hard thing to witness all the time, and to, because it's not just the moment, it's not just losing the student, it's the aftermath that you're dealing with also. So it's the kids that come in that are sad, and now they don't know what to do with that hurt, so they start acting out in class. They start getting in fights all the time, and you're constantly trying to work with your team to navigate that, and that wears people out. So yeah, there's huge turnaround in our school.
You know what it is, man? Like, I think we always talk about how this is just one of the most exhausting professions on the planet, and I'm certainly not comparing it to one of those crab fishermen, working 72 hours out in the sea. But what it is, it's that combination of, it's physical exhaustion a little bit, but man, it's, what it is, it's, and the intellectual exhaustion, because of the thousands of decisions we're making every single day that, shifts the trajectory of a kid's life, and the pressure of that. But man, in addition to that, it's like that emotional exhaustion because of all that stuff you talk about, like constantly trying to figure out the emotional why behind that behavior and behind that action, and trying to figure out what the story is that's causing that, because we know that action and that behavior, that is a symptom of the emotion, and we have to figure out the story that's driving the emotion, and that just is emotionally exhausting.
Yeah, because it's Sisyphus's rock, right? It's like you push that rock up the mountain, and then at the end of the year, you're like, all right, we got there. Like I achieved something. And then the next year, it's like that rock just went right back down the mountain again. You got to start over with brand new kids. And it's like,
Right.
wait, what's happening? I thought we figured this, we got to a place, but then we just magically transported back to the beginning again. And it's the same stuff. And every year, the 10th graders, 11th graders, 12th graders all come back to my room, and they're like, they see the 9th grade, and they're like, yo, what's wrong with these kids, Reynolds?
That was you, brother.
We weren't like this. I'm like, bro, it's been the same forever. My hair was brown when I started teaching, man. Like, I get struck by lightning, you know, then just turn white magically.
Yeah.
It's you guys. So, yeah.
And you know what else, man? Here's what I think I really want us to do a better job at is, because I'm terrible, man. Even up into my last day, I was terrible at this. Is I was allowing kids to convince me that they weren't getting it and it didn't matter. And now even being on the road, man, I can't tell you how many airports or hotels I've been in. I've taught thousands of kids over a quarter century, and like these kids, Bowman, and I'll look at them like I'm trying to figure out who this kid is and what, because now they're 35 and I'm trying to figure out who they were back then.
Yep.
And I can't tell you how many times they were like, man, I loved your class. I'm like, no, you hated it. No, I loved it. No, bro, you told me I hate this class and I hate you. And it is, no, I loved it. No. And like I was convinced at the time that it wasn't getting in, like they were a better actor than I was a teacher. Like I would buy into the eye roll and they give me the finger, talk about my mom or whatever it was. But what I wanted to do a better job at is knowing and helping myself, reminding myself and convincing myself it's working. I might not see the evidence of it today, and that's fine. I don't need to see it today, but I know it's working for sure.
100%. Dude, teachers are in the business of planting seeds, and some of those seeds grow quick, like morning glories. They're fast and furious. They're all over the place, and we can celebrate that. If you look at a plant like bamboo, takes 7 years. It grows the roots down really deep first, and then it pops up. And so some kids, that's what it is. And I've had kids that have come back years later that are like, dude, you said this thing to me. On both sides. I'll give you 2 examples of this so that people out here don't think that I'm just like trying to, I don't want to make myself seem like the shining star, because I remember my second year of teaching, I ate salad every day for lunch. And the students would be like, why eat salad all the time? And I'm like, you hungry? And they would just dog me for like, oh, there goes Reynolds eating rabbit food again. And I used to tell my kids jokingly, I would say, you know what, guys, second on the lips is lifetime on the hips. And it just as a throwaway line, I once had a kid come back that was like, that hurt my feelings so bad, because after high school and college, I gained a lot of weight. And I used to think about you saying that all the time. Second on the lips is lifetime on the hips. And I'm like, bro, if you think that I said that to bring you down or to, like I was saying, because you guys were dogging me all the time. But the flip of that was, I once told a girl, I used to write my students letters at the end of every year when they graduated. At the end of that letter, I would write, don't forget, no matter who tells you otherwise, you belong everywhere. And I had a young woman just last year hit me up, and she said, that line has gotten me through teenage pregnancy. It's gotten me through college. It's gotten me through being in the corporate world where I felt like I was a woman and a minority, and I didn't maybe belong in that room with these people that were in there. And she said it meant so much to me. She actually got it tattooed in my handwriting from the letter on her forearm. And she's like, because it has meant everything to me. So when I say we're planting seeds, like that might not even bloom that year, but by the time they graduate, you have zero idea the weight that your words carry. And that, I think, is something that gives us hope, because then we can hold on to that and know that even when that kid graduated, you just don't know what happened afterwards. Like, you can only still be there. And that's the beauty of staying in the job, is like, I mean, I'm sure you see like the kids come back to you and visit you years later or see you in the mall or whatever. And it's like, okay, you did turn out all right. Like, all the training was for nothing. So it's so now.
Man, you know what else it is? I think also we tend to forget, those are obvious and demonstrative examples, but there's also the subtle subconscious ones too. Like, I know for a fact that kids are going to parent their kids at some point when they have children. Hopefully it's a long time from now, that they're the way they parent their children is as a result of what they experience in the classroom. When a dad gets on his knees so he can be eye to eye with his kid when he's having the conversation, Did dad learn that because of the way you worked with him at his desk in school? Like it all goes in there, and even if they don't know it, I know it, and that's, I think, is important to remember too.
Yeah, absolutely. It means everything, and that's the exciting part. On your worst days, it's like, and you think that you suck, and this is all going nowhere, and you can't do it, bro. You don't know what kids are picking up from you when you're standing in front of that classroom, or when you stayed a little bit extra late, or when you gave that kid, your time or your energy or whatever it was. Like we don't know. And that's awesome. I'm glad.
And I think, for me, a lot of it shifted when I became a dad, and because and I'm not saying you can't be an amazing teacher without kids, but for me, maybe because I was a man, like it really changed a lot about my teaching is when I had my own kids. And because now it became like intentionally conscious of the fact when I'm paying attention to a kid, I'm looking at that kid, like I want that kid now to parent their child at some point the same way, with that same kind of focus and attention. The way I'm listening, I want him to listen to his kids in 30 years just like that.
Yeah, 100%. So look, when my son, when we figured out, so he has high functioning autism and a number of like processing disorders and dyslexia, and when that kind of all came to light, that changed the way I even dealt with all of my special ed students, like in the blink of an eye. I immediately felt that those parents were not getting the services that they need. I was watching either the services my son got or the ones that he was denied, and then seeing what we were offering our students, and it made me push like infinitely harder. It's not even comparable to the way that I was, because I just didn't know. And it's like, even in parenting in general, it's like when people that don't have kids give you parenting advice, you're like, bro, you have zero idea. Like you cannot know what it's like to do this if you're not in the boat. It's like,
yeah. When I was, I think it was my second year teaching, I was in a little town, and I was at some sort of a parent, special ed art meeting or something, and we're going around the table, and you have to throw in your 2 cents as the teacher of this kid. And I throw in my 2 cents, and I'm saying dishing it out there, and then the mom reaches across and she's tapping on the table right in front of me, and she says, "Excuse me." I go, "Yes, ma'am." She goes, "You don't have kids, do you?" And I said, "No, I don't." She goes, "Okay, well that makes sense."
Yeah.
And I thought, what? How rude is that? And I hated her, and I called her names in my mind afterwards. But then, like when I had kids, I was like, oh my gosh, she was right. She was so right. I get it now.
Yeah, because you learn things like every single conference I have in the beginning of the year when I meet parents is, before I get into anything, I'm not going to tell you anything you don't know about your kid. What do you wish I knew about your child? And that question alone, parents are like, oh my God, no one's ever asked me that in my life.
Right.
Like every year, because nobody ever asked me about my kid. Like I know, like I've been raising this dude for 12 years, man. Like I know some things about him, and I really deeply care about him. Right. So I'm not like a dad that's not really around, because I've had folks come in, like these dads that are like, look, I haven't been around. I don't know how to answer that question. And I can honor that. I get it. Like you are being upfront and honest, and I appreciate that. So we can figure this out together. But damn, like when you ask a mom that and they're like, actually, okay, like someone like my wife who's like, here's the list of things that you should know. And I'm like,
right,
now you're giving me something to go on. I'm not trying to figure it out, as we go. It's like, I know that your kid struggles in these areas, or this is what he needs. And that can change everything in a classroom.
Yeah, I love it. But I'll tell you this though, in full disclosure, is my daughter is a freshman in college now. In her last couple of years, she did have a teacher that we'd meet the teacher night, when she was 16, 17, 18 years old. He had that list. So it was the list of questions you pass out. And one of those questions for parents was, is there anything I need to know about your child that would help me be more effective in the classroom? So like that for me, because she's amazing and wonderful. So I would put all kinds of crazy stuff. Yeah, since she was paroled, she sometimes has a problem. I just can't help myself, man.
That's exactly what I would do. I'd be like,
and then she would say, "Did you do?" I was like, "What did you expect?" I was like, "Come on, man! It's like giving me a canvas, and I'm the artist. I'm gonna have some fun with that guy."
A little streetness. It's like I immediately got my kid street kid by filling out this form.
Hey man, so I have a couple of questions here.
Yeah,
These are ones that were sent in, and here's one. So apparently, man, you had a goal to run every day for a year,
it.
and had that. So we're in December. Like December passed.
So
Did you do it?
I ran from December 10th, 2018, and then the goal was to go to 1 year, and then I figured, well, I'm almost at all of 2019, so I might as well finish 2019, and then that had me close to 400. So I was like, I might as well go to 400. And so I finished on 403 days. I kind of felt like Forrest Gump, where I just didn't want to do it anymore. I was like, I'm done running. So
it's over that.
But I ran every day for a year. It was one of the hardest things I ever did, because no matter what, it was like if someone passed away, if I was, with my grandmother in the hospital when she was in hospice, whether it was my kid's birthday, it was Christmas, it was sleeting outside, it was 20 below zero. No matter what, I had to run. And, it was hard, but it just showed me that I could do it. Like it literally made me feel like this year I could do anything that I want to do in my life.
Yeah.
That's something.
I love it, man. I think here's what I think. I think as adults, oftentimes we don't have enough things in our life that are physically really hard. I think there's something in our DNA that's left over where we need something that's maybe even a little painful, that's really challenging, that you got to commit to. I think that makes you a better person in every area of your life.
Yeah. And that's part of where it came from. I read this book last year called You Can't Hurt Me by this guy, David Goggins. And he was saying, like, purposefully making your life suck. What that does is it puts you on offense. So my life, things were really hard. Like, I mean, my grandmother being sick and my father-in-law passed last year. And so with all that going on, it was like, I'm going to make my day harder than anything my day can throw at me. And that was, so on the days when it was raining and snowing and it was 100 degrees outside, it was like, those were the days where it meant the most to me, because it was like, this sucks. And my wife, every single day, as she's sitting over here, she's laughing, I would come in from a run and she goes, how was your run? I go, it sucks. I hate it. Like, I'm not an athletic dude. I played right field my whole life. I played music for a reason, because you have to play sports to get girls in high school. You can suck in a band and still like talk to people of the opposite sex and feel confident. So, yeah. So then that's what I did. I just decided I was going to run, and I can't believe I did it, man, but I did it.
And for those of you teachers about to go out and try to find the David Goggins books and look at his video, just be ready.
Yeah.
You're getting an earful of a whole lot.
It's like, that dude curses more than a sailor, man. It's like, I have it on the house. I gotta have headphones on for that one, because
he would have fit right into my classroom. Hey man, real quick, tell us about Big Guy Little Car.
So that's digging deep. So I had last year, this guy, my man Cephas, and Cephas he's a big dude, and he broke his foot and he had to have this metal rod put in it. But my man had to walk home from school every day, and I'd see him like hobbling on his way home every day. So our school, if we make arrangements with parents, like, so I get permission from my school, I get permission from parents, I was allowed to give him a ride home. Well, you give one dude a ride home, now all his homies want to ride home also. So it's these two big dudes, Cheesesteak and Cephas, get in my car every day, and we just started making videos that were dumb. And so my car, they would complain that my car was too little. I drive like a Honda. It was like spacious enough for me, but they would get, I mean, when those dudes got out of my car, it looked like it was giving birth. That's how big they were. And we're sitting in the car, and I'm like, yo, we got to record some of this dumb stuff we talk about every day. So we just started recording it, and then thousands and thousands of people started watching it every single day on Instagram. We called it Big Guy Little Car, and it was just us having a real talk. And I think the real love for that came from, first of all, the kids' personalities were hilarious. They're just hilarious human beings. But seeing a teacher having a real talk with a kid that's not about what happened in class today. It's not about like, how are you going to accomplish your homework tonight, or how are you going to live your dreams? It's like just dumb, regular stuff. I think most teachers want to get there with their students. And that was a good example of like, this is what it could look like. And it's just talking about regular stuff every day. So yeah, Big Guy Little Car, man. It's it was a thing for all that.
And that's the thing about teaching. I always try to tell people, like, imagine yourself like every day you show up with 1,000, how many people have in school, 1,000, but there's these rare personalities you would never find outside, because no one's ever in a space with 1,000 people. It's like a 1 or 2 or 3 in 1,000 chance you're going to meet this crazy personality.
Yeah,
super smart, super funny, super charismatic, like everything, and there he is, and you get to spend a day with that kid and talk to him. Dude, it's a blast. Hey, your book, the cover. Tell us about the cover, man. Was there like an artist, or like what's the story behind the graffiti?
So the fact is, I didn't think I'd ever get so when I got approached by my friend Adam Welcome to write a book, he was like, "You got to write a book." So I got the opportunity a couple of years ago. There's a guy on YouTube named Gary Vaynerchuk, and so Gary, through the series of events, I get invited up to his office with my students, and this guy, Adam Welcome, sees it and he goes, "Dude, you got to write a book." And I'm like, "Yeah, I thought about it one day." He's like, "No, you got to write a book." And so I wrote a book. But then when I was writing it, I'm like, I don't know, anyone's ever going to ask me to write a book for the rest of my life. So I might as well make it look and read like the way that I want it to. So I reach out to this guy, Aloysius McElwain, who's Cultures in Clothing on Instagram. He's a Philly graffiti artist. And one night on my live feed on YouTube, I ask everyone that's watching to immediately DM Aloysius and ask him to do the cover. And he got back to me and he was like, "Dude, I got all these messages. I don't even know who you are." Like, asking me to do a book cover for, he's like, I'm like a graffiti artist, man. And he did it though. And he like worked with me and he put 2 of my students on the front and it just came out so great. I'm so proud of it because it is the essence of who my students are. It is as much about them as it is about anything else. And I just want to represent my boys and have them, those 2 guys that are on the front, like they're stoked. They're so pumped to be on there and to be represented in the way that they're represented. So that's what it was all about.
Yeah, I love it. All right, so there you go. There's 2 between Goggins and Gary V. Man, that's an F-bomb. That's a circus going on right there.
I had to warn my school before we went up there, but I mean, all the dudes I took were like a lot of guys that I was worried about. Like when we went to Gary V, it was like guys that were caught up in the streets and making bad choices, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen to them after high school. And so we go up there, and I'm like, "Look, this dude's going to curse at them, but it's no different than the way that they talk like anywhere else. It's in school or otherwise." So but it's not just cursing for cursing's sake. It is, I think, just like in music, right? Like, it creates that impact where if you went from speaking one way to if you curse and say it, it shifts. Now, all of a sudden you have everyone's attention. And I think that can be impactful. And so that was the lesson that day, because it did. That trip changed kids' lives.
Yeah. Those life defining moments, anytime we can have an opportunity to put them in that place, man, it's just, I love it. Like they'll be talking about it when they're 40 and be telling a kid about, going to the office and downtown, this dude and his language and the whole thing. Yep. Hey man, we have some $100 gift card winners. What do you think about that, brother?
I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. So let me announce it. And, so check it out, CJ. We have James Tobin. Man, this guy, he gets to pick an Amazon or a Target card, and also Melody Rose, James Tobin, Melody Rose, and finally, in addition to that, is Jennifer Jones.
Good job.
Yeah. And man, thanks for chiming in and participating. And if you reach out to the Help a Teacher folk, I know they're going to try to find you, but it's always easier if you find them. And we'll get you hooked up. And real quick, man, I also wanted to remind everybody that all that is made possible by the Craig Newmark Philanthropies. Man, they do such an amazing job, and we're so thankful to them. And hey man, thanks for being on tonight, man. We really, really appreciate you.
I love this stuff, man. I wish there was more places to just kind of, it's like all the teachers you want to hang out with sometimes are like all over the country. So I've taken the time and let me be on and run my mouth a little bit.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. Hey brother, we appreciate you so much.
You got it, man. Thanks so much.
All right, man. Take care.
Peace.